Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of That's Ruddy Mysterious, a podcast of short tales about true mysteries. What created the Potomsky Crater? Who was involved in the 1963 Great Train Robbery? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sruddymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the Bleeding House in Atlanta, Georgia. William Winston lived in the house at 1114 Fountain Drive in Atlanta, Georgia with his wife, Minnie Clyde Winston. On the night of Tuesday, September 8, 1987, at around 11:30 p.m., Minnie stepped out of the shower to a horrific scene. She saw bloodstains all over the bathroom floor and had stepped out of the shower into a small pool of blood. William was 79 and in poor health. He was cared for by Minnie, who was 77. The house they lived in was built in 1945. It was made of brown brick and had green shutters. In 1987, it had 6 rooms in total, 3 of them bedrooms. It was about 3 miles, or about 5 kilometers, from downtown Atlanta. It was located in an area of the city where the neighborhood was mostly segregated. After finding the bloodstains, Minnie alerted William, who had been sleeping. They checked out the bloodstains, which were mostly small stains, and suspected that a rodent had been hurt, but they couldn't find any injured rodents. They found that blood was coming from the walls in most of the rooms of the house. They also found blood in the inaccessible crawl spaces in the basement. Blood was bubbling up from the floors and running under kitchen appliances and the television. William was on dialysis, so they checked his machine for leaks and found none. The Winstons' property manager came to look for leaks but didn't find anything that could have been the cause of the blood. Not knowing what else to do, the Winstons called the police. The emergency medical technicians, or EMTs, showed up first. They checked the couple for injuries and found none. Then Brenda Dipple, a lab technician, arrived and collected samples of the blood. She also took pictures. She said, "This house gives me the creeps." A police spokesman said, "It's not going to be a, the house that bleeds kind of case. Houses don't bleed." The forensic tests came back quickly. The blood in the house was human, type O to be exact. Both of the Winstons had type A blood, so it was not theirs. The police asked the Winstons if they had had any recent visitors. The Winstons said they hadn't. The police also searched for signs of a break-in but found none. The Winstons had locked their doors at 9:30 p.m. the night the blood appeared and set their security alarm for the night. Homicide detective Steve Cartwright later said that in his 10 years of service he'd never seen anything like this. He called it an extremely strange situation and added, "I'm guessing it was an animal. Hope that's all it was." The police didn't believe there was a homicide. Shortly after the investigation began, it ended. Police said there was no evidence that a crime had taken place and closed the case. Police Lieutenant Horace Walker said, "We have no leads at this time. We will continue a routine investigation, and if we find that no crime was committed, we're through with it. As we see it now, there has been no crime." He found it concerning that someone could have done it as a hoax and that the police didn't have any answers. In the same report, he said the blood was unlikely to be indicative of a murder. At first, Minnie maintained that the blood was actually rust and mud from a broken water heater in the basement. She said the water heater had sent mud through the ductwork, but the crime lab showed the stains were actual human blood. As soon as the police arrived, so did the onlookers. Due to William's health, Minnie Winston was left to deal with them on her own. Kurt Rowlett, a paranormal activities researcher and guitarist for the band The Tombstones, interviewed Minnie about 6 months after the blood appeared. The Winstons had lived in the house for 22 years without anything abnormal or paranormal happening. Before the Winstons lived in the house, however, a man by the name of Albert Thompson lived there with his wife. He was a black man. He was injured in a car crash with internal bleeding. The white person that hit him was never charged. Some believe that the house was bleeding because of this connection. Rowlett determined that Minnie didn't want to believe anything paranormal was happening, so she didn't. Parapsychologist William George Roll Jr. came with a reporter to investigate. They were turned away but kept trying. On September 10th, Minnie said, "I still don't know where the blood came from, and I'm tired of all these people asking me all these questions. If anybody comes here today, I'm not going to open my door. The phone rang all night, people asking me questions. I'm fed up with all this." On the same day, William said, "I'm not bleeding. My wife's not bleeding. Nobody else was here." William and Minnie Winston continued to live in the house until their deaths. William died in 1981, and Minnie lived to be 104, dying in 2015. They never did find the source of the blood. An anonymous police source said that some adults like to act like children just to get attention. The Winstons had a good record, so there's no reason to believe they would do this. Others believe the Winstons perpetrated a hoax because of tension between them and their adult children. Horace Walker said that family problems had apparently existed and that they gave the Winstons, or maybe their children, a motive to perpetrate the hoax. Some believe that the Winstons' daughter stole blood from her job and threw it all over the Winstons' house. Many that believe this theory think that the daughter wanted to have the Winstons declared incompetent in order to take over their finances. Others believe that the blood was the result of paranormal or supernatural causes. Some that believe this theory think that the blood was linked to Albert Thompson's death. There is inherent violence in the racism of not charging the white driver. The blood first appeared in the lead-up to the anniversary of his accident and death, which occurred on Halloween. Some believe the racist theory that the couple was practicing some sort of animal sacrifice. Others think the blood was connected to the police shooting and death of a man just days before the blood appeared. Still others think the house was a hub for paranormal activity. And yet others think the blood was tied to September 1906 massacre of black people in the neighborhood. Then there are those that believe the blood wasn't blood at all and was in fact rust or mud. Some even believe the blood was actually red dye from a carpet. The problem with these theories is that the police lab confirmed the substance was really human blood. What caused the bleeding in the Atlanta, Georgia house? Why did it disappear almost as quickly as it appeared? Did the Winstons perpetrate a hoax? Or maybe it was paranormal somehow? What do you think? Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ruddy Mysterious. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review and follow That's Ruddy Mysterious to be updated about new episodes. Tune in next Tuesday for another thought-provoking tale.